Shalom, shalom, Chevra. It is an honor and delight to be here with Rabbi Baruch Gartner from the holy city of Yerushalayim in Jerusalem, who opened up the first English-speaking yeshiva catering to young men looking for a Hasidic-spirited environment called Yeshivas Derech HaMelech, and he recently wrote a book called Living Aligned. So Rabbi Gartner, thank you so much for taking time to talk.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
So to start off here, this book, Living Aligned, what is that phrase? What does that idea mean?
Well, on my desk at all times is a copy of another book written many years ago, the Ramak, who wrote a book about aligning with divine attributes. So Hashem is ultimately the most benevolent being that there is, and he wants to give. But in order to get that, we have to align with him. That's the secret of Kabbalah. Kabbalah, the deep connotation of the word Kabbalah, doesn't just mean to receive. The deep connotation of it means in order to receive, you have to mirror. We're trying to mirror Hashem. The name Adam, man, is Adama Le'elyon. We're mirroring God, his attributes, his deeds, and in order to live life the way it's supposed to be lived, you have to live aligned. And that's what I do. I help try and get people aligned with the true essence of who they are. Each person has his own truth, but there's also cosmic truth.
I love that. Okay, so part of this of halachta b'drachav, that we emulate God's midot.
Say it in English.
Okay,
what does it mean?
That we walk in God's ways. And I love that you brought the Ramak, Tomer Devora, because it's kind of a merger of Musar and Chassidus. It's of like character development and
don't forget, it's pre-Musar.
Yes. Pre-Musar, good point. Yes, good point.
It's a very interesting thing because it reads like, it's really the root of, he really was an innovative thinker.
Very innovative. And so, so the part of Ratzon Hashem, the will of God, part of that is a process of Talmud Torah. We learn Torah, we learn about Ratzon Hashem, but then you talk about our own truth. What is the process to discovery of one's own mission that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given us?
Well, part of it is learning Torah, because a large part of what we think is our will is really just an illusion. So in order for us to really get in touch with who we are, we have to, it's a two-step process. And it's two steps at the same time going on all the time. We have to be sensitive to who we are, and we have at the same time be grounded in knowing what the will of Hashem is. So you have to do both. A lot of times people do one or the other. They don't do both together. We need both, for sure.
Beautiful. So what happens when we see a misalignment? We see in ourselves something that doesn't totally line up. How do we hold on to our uniqueness, but
Great
also have a tikkun, have a repair?
A great question. A lot of times we don't recognize that the Torah has many facets to it. For instance, we're talking to an audience from America. Well, there's an American way to be Jewish. You don't have to just look in books that are written hundreds of years ago and say, I have to grow a long beard and peyot. A person can express his connection with Hashem in infinite ways. And that's the idea and people don't realize that, even when it comes to prayer. People don't realize that there's something called personal prayer. You can connect to Hashem in your own words. Oftentimes, it's very difficult for people to connect with words, especially Hebrew. And a lot of times, there's just too many words. You approach prayer and you see, wow, you got to say everything, and you just kind of shut down. The rabbis of blessed memory say a little bit with intention is better than a lot without intention. So even me, actually skip parts of the davening in order to say things slower with more intention. So it's an aspect of each person finding his niche in and trying as hard as he can to align with Hashem and at the same time be true to himself. And this is classic, a story just popped into my mind when I first became close with one of my teachers, the Holy Tzaddik Reb Maltel Zilber. So I noticed that he was very, very ascetic. And I had grown up in America, and I was very sport orientated. And now at the time, I was a practicing scribe, and I spent many, many hours hunched over letters. And in order to just keep my head above water, I used to swim. But I would go to a place that was pretty nice, and I went to this Rabbi, and with trepidation, I posed him the question, maybe this was not according to the Rebbe's will. After all, look, the Rebbe's so ascetic, he's so austere and so thin and doesn't do anything for his body. And he looked at me and he said, what's wrong? What's wrong with exercise? So I said, well, it's a very nice place. He goes, well, how often do you go? I said, once a week. So he said, you could go every day. Now, this was a man who literally, I'm telling you, does nothing for his body, but he saw in me a person that needs to exercise, and I really take pride in exercise. And when I work with people, counsel people, I say it's the best drug. And each person has to find his way of serving Hashem.
Very nice. So because we're approaching Shavuos next week, a holiday of Shavuot, how do you understand the role of Ruach HaKodesh today, the role of revelation today? The sense that, okay, traditionally we look to Torah, we look to our texts to understand revelation of Har Sinai, but then today we still want to receive. We still want to receive a Kodesh Baruch Hu's presence, wisdom. To what extent do you understand our capacity to receive?
Great question. Just a couple minutes ago, I was learning with a friend something from the Zohar, which is, we just had Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's Yortzeit. So I wanted to learn something in the Zohar. What did I pick? A part of the Zohar from this week's Parsha that literally will help people understand the idea of receiving the Torah. So what does Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai teach in Parshas Bahar? That the Jewish people actually have two names. They're called servants of Hashem, Avadai Haim. This is in this week's Parsha. And they're also called children of Hashem. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, what's the difference of these two modes? A servant, he doesn't have the ability to ask questions. He just has to serve his master according to his needs and trust that he's going to be rewarded. On the other hand, there's a son who has privy to go into the treasures of the Father, which is a metaphor for learning secrets of the Torah. And it's a whole different thing. A son has perceptions of his father. It's like a different headspace. Says Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, nevertheless, each person has to have both the crown, and he says the crown of an Eved, and the servant, and the crown of a son. He has to incorporate them together. What does he mean? So Rabbi Nachman explains this idea that when it comes time for a person to actually do a mitzvah, let's say whatever it is, whether it's eating matzah or hearing a shofar, he has to actually cast away all of his wisdom and serve Hashem like a servant. And if he does that, then he becomes what's called a super son. Why? Because since his father sees his great love for him, that he's willing to cast away all of his perceptions and roll in the mud for his father, something that even a servant wouldn't do. So Hashem gives to him even higher perceptions, which is the idea of prophecy. Meaning like this. This is all part of what's called Nas v'Nishma. What does it mean, Nas v'Nishma? I will do, and then I will hear. You're going to do before you understand? Exactly. That's the secret of the Jewish people. They did not understand. In fact, for everyone in the world, Hashem offered the Torah, and they said, how can I do that? That's against my nature. You don't understand. That is the process of life, rising above nature. Nature is stamped in, you're impatient, you get angry, you have fears. These are all natural things. This is all what's going on in the world. They're being tested right now. This virus is making a lot of people afraid, and they should be afraid. That's a natural thing. But you have to understand that Hashem's behind everything. He wants you to rise above this. He wants you to change your nature. So therefore, he gave us a Torah. And the Torah is the divine will. And inside of each and every one of us, we have a soul. And that soul is hewed out of the supernal soul. My will, deep down inside, is to do the will of Hashem. But I got a nature. And the nature says, but wait a second. If you take off a day of work, you won't have what to eat. No, you don't understand. There's the seventh day, the sabbatical year. There's Moshe Rabbeinu. Who do you want to be? You want to live in the world of Paro and go to the University of Cairo, or you want to go out into the desert and receive the Torah with Moshe Rabbeinu? Baruch Hashem, the Jewish people are alive. We've been aligning with Hashem for many, many years. We're still here. We're prospering. We'll make it through this. All of our suffering that we suffer is because we're not aligned, or because Hashem deemed it imperative that we do suffer. But Baruch Hashem, we have a Torah, the Jewish people are alive. And
so, since you brought this up, the pandemic, how do you understand the theology of the pandemic? In what way is something like this part of a divine plan? Of course, we can never perfectly know, but how do you grapple with, how do you make sense of this?
Well, look, I have empathy for all the people who had lost loved ones. And I personally suffered financial difficulties because of this, people around me, especially here in Jerusalem. It is a terrible thing, but we believe with perfect faith that everything is from Hashem. And really, I see this as a fire drill. This is a fire drill. We have to understand, more than ever, we saw with our own eyes that within a few days, the whole world changed, okay? We are in the hands of Hashem, only. Only Hashem can do this, and only Hashem can save us. We live in an illusion if we think that we can overcome anything that happens. Hashem is the master of the world. And I believe that he wants us to learn from this, that he is in control. And I think that that's the real message behind it all.
Thank you.
You can get confused. You can get drawn in to all the different schools of thought. I'm making a joke. You could get into the media or the conspiracy, the Democrats or the Republicans, the World Health Organizations or the home remedies. Stay at home, go out. You could literally drive yourself crazy. Or you could say, listen, this is all orchestrated, not by conspiracy, but by Hashem. And he wants us to align with him, recognize that he's the master of the world.
So just two more questions in the interest of time here. So one is, you brought up the Rashbi. You brought up the Rashbi. I think a lot about the Rashbi and the cave and when he comes out and how he relates to society. And I wonder, in thinking about our alignment, thinking about our work to be living aligned, how do you understand how we relate to the political realm, to the societal realm? In that, there's those who say, just go learn Torah, remove yourself from society. And there are those who immerse themselves in society and politics and don't engage in Torah. But Torah is about all of life. And so how does our living aligned work in kind of a realm of purity when we're dealing with something relatively impure, such as something so messy?
You hit a sore spot, especially right now. Especially you mentioned Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Look, you can't change the fact. The story is that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, according to what's written in the Talmud, not the Zohar, in the Talmud, was very much against the Roman government. There were the rabbis that actually praised the Romans for building roads and bathhouses. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai said, no, you got to understand something. Everything they did for themselves. And for that statement, just a statement, he ran away. So, I don't, there's a big difference between the Jewish government and the Roman government. I'm not trying to equate it at all. But one thing that's clear is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was not into the Roman government, and because of that ran away. But it's very interesting, though. His problem became his opportunity. Meaning, when he was being pursued for what he said, it looked disastrous, and he paid for it, because after 13 years of being in a cave, he didn't look so good. And when his father-in-law saw him, he said, "Oh, hey, look at you. You look terrible." He says, "Happy are you that you see me like this, because Sham Kanisa hod v'hadarecha. It was there that I acquired my splendor. It was there that I learned the secrets of the Torah. It was there that I became Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai." So everybody has to make their decision about how much they want to be in the world, how much they want to be in the world, how they want to be in the world. But, this is a big, big part of the book, Living a Line, is that there's two trees. There's the tree of life and the tree of knowledge. These two trees were both in the Garden of Eden. It appeared as if God did not want Adam to eat from the tree of knowledge ever. But it's not true. According to the deepest secrets of Kabbalah, Hashem would have let Adam eat from the tree of knowledge. In fact, why in the world did Adam eat from the tree of knowledge? One of the ideas is the secret is that Adam knew that going out in the world was part of the divine plan. And he couldn't understand why sitting in this garden was going to be the reason for his creation. Little did he know that Hashem would have let him eat from the tree of knowledge had he first aligned himself with the tree of life. And this was rectified by Yaakov many years later, that before he went out to start his family and earn a living, he buried himself in the house of learning before he went out. And this is the paradigm. First, a person has to get a foundation of being clear, centered, understanding how to live, how to work, how to make a living, how to have children, how to get married, how to have children. You have to learn what is the will of Hashem. How do you live? And then after you bound yourself to the tree of life, then you can navigate in the tree of knowledge. These two trees represent two aspects of our life, the inner and the outer. If your inner is not aligned, whatever you do in the external is going to fall. All good, even communism, there was a good intention. But if people aren't aligned, if they're not rectify their egos, then all these individual egos become the collective ego, and ego is acronym edge God out.
I love that. So you got to eat from Eitz Chaim before Eitz Das. You have to eat from the tree of
Incidentally, yeah. I love this one. In my name, Baruch, which means blessed, is the same numerical value as Eitz Chaim, the tree of life.
Very nice. Very nice. And I would suggest, and I wonder if you agree, that this is not only about our lifespan. There's a stage of Eitz Chaim, and then there's the stage of Eitz Das. It's every day. Every day we have to realign ourselves. Right?
100%. And that is the secret of why in the morning everyone should take time for himself. Prayer, exercise, learning, all of the things that a person has to literally center himself before he goes out and does good things in the world.
Yeah.
God willing, everyone should do good things in the world.
I mean. So just the last question for you, and then to be continued. Tell us about your yeshiva. Why did you found this yeshiva? What's the
Well,
nature?
first of all, the
Types of
yeshiva
puppies that you're
is
looking at?
virtual. The yeshiva is virtual,
Virtual yeshiva, yeah.
which is also the best from Hashem.
Yeah.
Because believe me, in 2008, when the financial crisis began, so it was a little bit hard to be the head of a yeshiva, because part of having yeshiva means to make sure it's funded. And I guess I'm really happy right now that I have a yeshiva, because it's not easy to fund things when there's people, unfortunately, out of work and people that need a lot of help. So it's the virtual yeshiva. Right now, I have students online. I have a very big Facebook and WhatsApp group, and I also counsel people privately. So, and God willing, and Be'ez Hashem, I'm waiting for the day that someone comes and puts the dollars on the table and we can start up again. Maybe somebody hearing this will step forward. But for right now, the yeshiva was in existence for 7 years, and it produced some amazing young men who are now Torah leaders throughout the world. Baruch Hashem, a lot of amazing people. And they were all kind of guys that had like a Hasidic neshama. They just had a leaning towards the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, and for them it was very difficult to be in an environment that was like straight. And they would come to me for Shabbos, and I basically went to my tzaddikim and said to them that there are groups of boys that just are suffocating in their places, and they need a place that's tailored for them. So we made it, and it succeeded for years, but financially became very difficult, especially in 2008. And right now it's virtual and waiting for the doors to open again.
Right. Okay, Shkoyach, thank you so much, Rabbi Baruch. And
my pleasure. You should be successful in everything that you do also.
I mean, wishing you much hatzlacha and bracha. Call to you.
Take care.